Welcome to Learn How to Develop Your Personal Legal Brand, Part 2, sponsored by the American Bar Association Young Lawyers Division. Moderating the program today is Kernisha Padilla. Kernisha is conflicts attorney in the Office of the General Counsel at Latham, Watkins. Kernisha also serves as our ABA Wildy Vice Director of Professional Development for this bar year. Kernisha, will turn things over to you.
Thank you. As indicated, my name is Kernisha Padilla and I am your moderator. Today, you are in for an inspiring and educational presentation. Today's program is meant for lawyers seeking to develop or improve their own personal brands with a specific, with a specific focus on using social media, non-lawyers assistance, and in-person networking strategies. This is not a skill that is taught in law school or any other academic course. Developing your brand can provide a lawyer with a wider range of career and leadership opportunities. We are grateful to have two incredible speakers that will provide guidance on their strategies for developing their own legal brands. Before we dive into this discussion, let's take a moment to introduce our esteemed faculty. Maggie Casey is a supervising assistant corporation counsel with the City of Chicago, where she advises clients on Freedom of Information Act and Local Record Act compliance. Prior to working for the city, Maggie worked as a Cook County Assistant State's Attorney. She currently sits on the board of the Black Women Lawyers Association and the Chicago Bar Association, Young Lawyers Section, where she received the Milton Gray Award for Outstanding Project Leadership for the 2021-2022 bar year. Next, Frank Ramos is a partner at Clark Silverglate in Miami, Florida, where he practices in the areas of commercial litigation, drug and medical device products liability, and catastrophic personal injury. Frank has been with Clark Silverglate for virtually his entire career. Frank has been president of the Florida Defense Lawyers Association and the 11th Judicial Historical Society. He serves as a mentor for countless young lawyers and law students through his publications, social media posts, presentations, webinars, and coffee chats. Frank has written 20 books for lawyers and over 400 articles for lawyers and business professionals. Of course, this is only the highlight reel of our accomplished panel. I welcome you to read their bios online. Quickly, I would like to set up what you can expect from today's panel. This program will consist of a moderated discussion of how to develop your own personal legal brand. Frank and Maggie, I am thrilled you could join us. Welcome.
Thanks for having us, Kernisha. I'm excited to chat.
Likewise.
Before we get too deep into content, this is a reminder that this How to Develop Your Personal Legal Brand program is a three-part series. This is the first of the three parts. This specific program today will address the following topics. First, we're going to focus on social media strategies for legal branding. Next, we will discuss utilizing non-lawyers for developing your personal legal brand. Then we will talk about networking with a specific focus on in-person networking strategies. Lastly, we will have a Q&A session at the end. Please feel free to submit your questions using the Q&A feature in Zoom. Let's dive in. And excuse me if I cough a little bit too much. It's that time of year, right?
I'm with you. It's very congested right now.
Yes. Social media usage in personal legal branding social media is obviously an important mechanism for personal and professional branding. It is a great tool for personal branding because you can easily reach your audience from anywhere in the world. What are some social media platforms that lawyers can utilize to develop their own personal legal brands? Frank, let's start with you.
Sure. The one that comes to mind, obviously, is LinkedIn, and that's the one I recommend all lawyers to have a professional profile on and to be active on. Facebook is also a good platform. It depends really on the clients you're trying to seek and pursue. A lot of lawyers are now active on TikTok because they're pursuing certain types of claims where their potential clients are on that platform. There's Clubhouse, there's Twitter. It really you have to start with, who do you want to attract and who you want to interact with, and who are the types of individuals that you want to be followed by. And if they're largely professional individuals, other lawyers, then LinkedIn is the obvious choice. If they're younger people or maybe folks who are trying to influencers and so forth, Instagram and TikTok are probably the places you want to be. So you have to decide first who your audience is and then find the platform where your audience participates in.
Great. Maggie, what are your thoughts?
Sure. So I completely agree with what Frank said about knowing your audience. For me, as a decade-long public servant, I'm not trying to get clients or bring anybody into the shop. But my purpose with social media is to try to get more people to know about me, know about the work that I'm doing, and also know about me outside of work, more for networking. So I like to use Instagram and I use LinkedIn. Things that I post on Instagram may be different from what I post on LinkedIn, but always keeping in mind that now, since I've opened my Instagram to people that I know through work or I know professionally through the bar associations, then I'm cognizant of what content I put up there. If I, am on vacation, I'm feeling myself and I would put up a bikini photo, I probably will put that to close friends only. I'm not going to post that on my page for everybody to see. But I do think Instagram is helpful for developing and making all the many people that you meet and may meet in your networking travails to get to know you and know more about you than just I'm a lawyer at this particular firm or at this office.
Yeah, very, very good. Thank you. You both mentioned LinkedIn as a means to develop your personal legal brand, or you touched on it. So let's take a moment can I have each of you provide background on the evolution of your LinkedIn profile's content connection? Frank, you have quite a large following on LinkedIn and provided great content to lawyers of all ages and specifically young lawyers. How have you successfully developed your personal brand using social media?
LinkedIn, I've been participating on the platform for a number of years, but in the last, I want to say 6 years, is when I was much more strategic about it and started posting on a daily basis. Before then, I really wasn't that familiar or appreciated what the platform was for. And for a long time, I don't think the platform knew what it was for. It was largely sort of a resume sharing platform where people would, post about themselves and try to get a new job or get the attention of a headhunter. And that's still part of the platform, but I think it's evolved a lot more, especially since the pandemic, where we were all kind of stuck in our homes and we're trying to find ways to stay connected, and LinkedIn kind of filled that breach. And there are a lot of lawyers who may not have been that active in the platform wondering, well, how am I going to stay in touch with people? How am I going to reach out to folks? And LinkedIn seemed to be the natural way of doing that. And so I've gotten more involved. I post each day. I post primarily, as you mentioned, I guess tips or advice for young lawyers and law students. And that's part of my brand. We're talking today about what our brand is, and ultimately, whatever platform you're on, you're trying to kind of sell yourself or market yourself is the right term, but you're trying to put yourself out there in a certain way and a certain light. And typically, what I recommend folks doing is picking a topic or topics they're comfortable writing about that really kind of define who they are and post about it regularly. And that's kind of what I did. And what I'm still doing, I find it's a good way to meet people and network, and usually it lays the foundation to develop more meaningful relationships.
Yeah, great. I myself am still working on fully developing my LinkedIn profile. Like, as you said, it has changed, and I don't think they knew for a while what it was really for. And I'm seeing a lot bigger use of it, or better use of it, should I say. Maggie, can you give us backstory on the evolution of your LinkedIn profile?
Sure. So I would start off by saying, if you're listening to this and you don't have a LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. I feel like LinkedIn is a new business card. When I'm out and I'm about, I'm not asking for people's cards. I'm asking, oh, what's your name again? So I can add you on LinkedIn. So the evolution of my profile, I started off, my mom was a professional photographer and then a nurse and then other things, but I had my mom take the photo with the iPhone, and that was my headshot for a period of time. And then I, got more into networking, got a headshot. It's not required. And the cameras are so much better these days that you can probably get a friend to get you a decent headshot. And one thing that I'm always cognizant of, my networking and my personal brand development involves a lot of being out and about at different legal functions. So when I'm out and about, I make sure that, okay, when I'm here, I need to have photographs documenting that I'm here so then I can post it to my social media. So that's something that has come as an evolution for me really within, I would say, the last 6 months, because it's like, well, if it's not on LinkedIn that you were here, were you really there? Like, right, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, did it really fall? So that's kind of the trajectory of my LinkedIn and kind of suggestions that I have for those that are interested in getting involved in building their LinkedIn presence.
Yeah, Maggie made a great point. I think LinkedIn today is sort of the business card of yesterday. I don't remember the last time I ever handed anybody my business card. I don't even know if I still have any. I just, people will ask me, well, how can I find you? And I say, well, just look me up on LinkedIn, type in my name and it'll come up and they'll connect with me or they'll message me through the platform.
Yeah, makes sense. I definitely do the same and ask for names so I can go ahead and add them straight away too. I haven't carried a business card in a very long time. Okay, you both mentioned other social media platforms that attorneys can utilize to develop their personal brands. Let's quickly touch on these platforms. Maggie, you gave us some insight into your use of Instagram and you were making some comments about kind of what not to post. Can you just give us some more insight on into these other platforms that you use for personal branding?
Sure. So I just want to hop back to LinkedIn for 1 second. There's something that I forgot to mention. Another thing that LinkedIn is very helpful for if you're interviewing is that you can go on LinkedIn and see who do I know that I'm interviewing with that or who do we know in common? Who do we know in common that I can call them and say, what do you know about this person? Or who do we know in common that I can call and say, can you please provide a reference for me if you guys are close? So LinkedIn is good for that. For Instagram, I feel kind of like you hear in social media, the concept of a parasocial relationship where people feel like they have, a relationship with influencer. They know the influencer because they've seen pictures of their baby and their husband and such, but you don't know them at all. You don't have any relationship with them. My presence is not quite like that, but it is the idea of this is somebody that I may see once every 3 months, once every, 4 months, a quarter, a quarter is 3 months, but once every 3 to 4 months, you see them. But in the interim, people can feel like they know you because they are seeing what you're doing in the interim. And when you meet them, you can say, oh, I saw you went to this vacation. How was that? It helps kind of with the networking in the small chat or like, how's your baby doing? That type of thing. So it's helpful for that, things not to post. As I mentioned before, like, some of us out here, we work out, we try to work hard. If you are feeling yourself and you want to post certain photos, don't post that to your general stories. Don't post that to your feed. If you feel the need to post those photos, then put only close friends and don't put anybody that you know from work on it. I personally avoid a lot of political topics putting on my Instagram because I don't really want to offend people one way or another. I'm not ashamed of my politics or my background, but if I'm trying to appeal to or build as many connections with people as possible, I don't think really going deep into politics is particularly helpful. So kind of like all the hot button things that people tell you to avoid bringing up in conversation that with people that you don't know, you're just meeting, are the same type of hot button topics that I would generally avoid posting on Instagram.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Now that we've touched on social media strategies, some different platforms that our attendees can utilize to develop their own personal legal brands, let's discuss more about the do nots, because Maggie, you were already kind of getting to that. Frank, can you give me your opinion or insight into do nots for social media in general?
Yeah, I agree with Maggie. I think you try to avoid political issues unless you really want to step into it. I mean, I know some colleagues who do it, and it's polarizing. And obviously, we all have opinions about things, and if you want to share them with your close friends, I'm not sure social media is the best platform for that. I avoid hot topic issues. I recommend that folks kind of think that you don't have a very wide audience and you think only so many people are going to see your posts, but they have the potential of going viral. They have the potential of being seen by future employers or prospective employers, by colleagues. And if that's something you want out there, and that's sort of the filter I use when I post anything. And I'm sure over the years I've posted certain things that I probably regretted because maybe they did go a little far field, either in politics or something else. But typically, if you stick to an area, especially if it's your area of expertise, if you are really good, let's say, to cybersecurity, and you really want to post about that on a regular basis, it's hard to mess up. You're just, talking about an area of the law, you're talking about new cases are coming out, new circumstances, cryptocurrency, whatever it might be. And the benefit of that is the more you write about a given topic or a given area of law, the more quickly you're perceived or seen as an expert, and that kind of builds your brand. And I think that's the fastest way of developing your brand as sort of an expert in a given area is picking a topic that you work on, that you enjoy, that you're passionate about, and posting about it regularly, if not daily. And after as little as a few weeks, but certainly within a few months, people who start following and reading your content and see you as an expert. And if you kind of stick to that as sort of the filter through which you post, you'll generally stay out of trouble. You'll generally won't be posting on things that are too controversial or too upsetting. Now, some people want to do that, and that's fine. I mean, everybody has their choice and prerogative of how they want to use social media. But if you and some people actually develop huge followings by being purposely controversial. That's not the way I do things. I think most lawyers probably don't do it that way, but that's just a caveat if you decide to go that route.
Hi, Maggie, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just have a quick follow-up. And I think I want to distinguish between kind of the presence it seems that like Frank has on social media as an expert and that I have on social media. I'm not necessarily posting as much about my area of the law, but more so posting about these are the interactions and the relationships that I have been able to build in the legal community. For Frank's area of expertise or practice in social media, I think that more than makes sense to do that on a daily basis. However, if you're posting about being out and about at events, knowing people, meeting people, I don't think that is something that you should be posting every day. I think that there's a happy medium to reach because you also at the same time don't want it to come across like, oh, I'm just somebody that's always out and about. Do you work? Do you have time to work? Like, well, how do you have time? So those type of things, for instance, last week for me was a very busy week with holiday parties. Instead of posting each holiday party, I wait till Sunday to post one group post. So I think also keeping in mind what type of content are you putting on there? If it's more educational and you're trying to build a following that way, yes, that post as much as you can. Maybe everyone doesn't have Frank's stamina to post every day, but post as much as you can. But if you're doing more about relationship building, don't post that every day.
Okay, sounds good. Now that we addressed social media strategies, do's and do nots, the next topic I'd like insight on is how to best utilize non-lawyers for personal legal branding. Maggie, can you share your perspective on this topic, please?
Sure. So when I started my journey about wanting to get more into networking and more into getting to know the people in my community, I spoke with my sister-in-law, who is an expert saleswoman. She works in the ad space for like social media platforms, Instagram. Now she works for Reddit. And I thought to myself, one, I'm a government attorney. I don't want to hire a professional coach or a career coach. I don't have the money for that. Who can I speak to that has this expertise? And so I went to my sister-in-law as a saleswoman, like, if you can sell products, then you can help me to sell myself. So that's something that I would keep in mind. If you're someone that's trying to really work on this skill set, because it is a skill set, think of people you know in your life that are successful at selling and talk to them. And a lot of times people, and my sister-in-law, she wouldn't be hurt to hear this. I think a lot of times people are flattered to hear like, oh, a lawyer wants my advice, a lawyer wants help from me. People are more than willing to help if you're nice to them and you really do acknowledge their expertise and strength in that area.
Yeah, I agree as well. Frank, what are your thoughts?
Maggie raised a good point. There's two types of folks we would reach out to. One are folks in the various platforms you want to emulate. If you have in mind what you want to do, what platform you want to be on, invariably there's probably a half dozen or more people who do it pretty well. And you don't even have to reach out to them. You can just kind of follow them and study their posts and get an idea of how they do it. And if you want to reach out to them and thank them for what they're doing, I'm sure most of them will find time to talk to you. People reach out to me and I'm always happy to talk to them. And so I'm sure if you reached out to me or anybody else, I'm sure they tell you how they go about doing it. And two, there's a lot of consultants that are out there and they provide a fair amount of free resources online. Most of them actually charge for their time, but a lot of them have either free webinars or low-cost webinars, or they have various materials. Whatever platform you're on, there's probably at least a dozen consultants on that platform telling you how how you should use that platform. And LinkedIn is no exception. There's probably at least 2 dozen people I follow on LinkedIn that their whole thing is teaching people how to use LinkedIn. And some or most of them will have LinkedIn Live seminars that are free, or they'll have articles that they shared. And so that's a good way of learning your platform. Figure out what platform you want to use, follow people on that platform or doing what you want to do, and then seek out the consultants on the platform and see what you can get from them. And if ultimately you want to hire them, you can do that as well, but you'd probably find you can get a lot of the resources they provide for free or little or no cost.
Yeah, I think it's very important to start using to just branch out and have different people in your area that you're looking at and seeing what they do and what works and doesn't work. You can apply some of those strategies that do work to your own personal thing. Now that we've addressed social media and non-lawyers for legal branding, let's get into our next topic of networking. Many of us are back in person for networking events. I know I shared with both of you, or sorry, I did not share, but I've had a few back in-person networking events myself, and it's been a bit awkward. I felt a bit out of practice, even though I try to be extremely social. It's just still kind of getting to the habit of, it's a practice, right? You have to practice it and continuously do it. But I'm willing to bet that I'm not the only person that felt awkward. So Frank, can you share some tips on in-person networking for attorneys?
Yeah, if you're not comfortable going to networking events, try to find someone that you're comfortable being with and go with that person and then jointly meet people. And try not to just spend the entire evening with that one other person. You have to be committed to meeting other people. But it can be awkward, especially if you don't know that many folks in an organization or give an event to just show up and get a drink or get an hors d'oeuvre and then start walking around introducing yourself. But generally, if you're partner with somebody, either from your firm or your company or whatever you work, or somebody you know you meet up with, that makes things a lot easier. If you do have to go alone, or you just don't have anybody to partner with, I would recommend that one, you kind of get a sense of what the event is about. Maybe reach out to the organizers and let them know you're coming and see if they'd be willing to introduce you to anybody. I recommend you actually show up earlier. I know it seems counterintuitive, but it's easier to mingle when there are fewer people than if you walk into a really big crowded room and you're kind of overtaken by just how many people there are there. And then just kind of be yourself. Like, if you can say, like, this is the first time I'm coming to this event, or haven't been involved that long in this organization, I don't really know anybody, I'm so and so, and just have a conversation. No matter what your objective is for the event, just take your time, just introduce yourself, spend more time listening than talking, try to be polite and but casual at the same time. Exchange business cards or exchange information about LinkedIn or whatever else. And then if you meet somebody you feel like you want to follow up with, just make a note of it so you don't forget, and then either follow up in an email, or if you've gotten the person's number through a text message, or whatever you feel is the right means of communicating with that individual. But if you're not used to doing it, it's a little overwhelming. It takes a lot of reps to get used to kind of going into a room and just talking to folks. And now, having done this for as many years, it took me a long time to feel comfortable at an event and just kind of mingle and socialize. And there's a fear factor, there's an uncomfortable factor. And the best advice I can give to you is that the first maybe half dozen times, it's not going to feel particularly natural. You're not going to really enjoy it. You're probably going to be looking for the exit. That's normal. That's just, that's part of the process. Accept it and just keep doing it. And the more you do it, eventually a lot of that fear is going to dissipate. You'll start getting comfortable doing it, and eventually it'll be second nature.
Yeah. Maggie, what about you?
So what you said, Kernisha, what Frank has said as well, networking is a skill, and just like any skill, you can learn it. You're a lawyer on here, you went to law school, you learn how to write and sit for the exams and pass the bar examination for those who are practicing at this time. So practice looks like going to the events. Practice can even look like, for me, I would try to talk to, and when I say talk to, hold a conversation with the person who's working in the grocery store, at the checkout line, the cashier, with the Uber driver. Of course, if they want to talk, if they don't want to talk, don't impose, right? Don't impose your desire to build your networking skills on them. But a lot of times people like that, they do want to talk. So try to work on those skills in areas outside of like formal networking events, because that will teach you, speaking with the Uber driver, the cab driver, the cashier, will teach you being able to start a conversation, hold a conversation with someone that you don't know. How LinkedIn and social media help is if you know who's going to be there, you can see, oh, okay, I'm going to search them on LinkedIn and I can see what they've done and bring that up as a point of conversation. And also kind of maybe have some go-tos as well for people that you're just meeting, about ways that you can try to spark or start up a conversation. So some easy go-tos are, what are you doing? You know, what brings you here today? Movies and TV are always safe topics. If you're a woman and you're seeing another woman, you compliment her, oh, I like what you're wearing, I like your bag, your whatever. I'm not into sports. Most people are. You can talk about sports. So those are some things just like keep in the back of your mind, of things to try to start up a conversation with people, so it's not as awkward.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's really just practice, like all of us have said, right? And coming out of COVID, we all are just trying to kind of get back into the swing of things. And they're all kind of just being thrown at us too, I think. So there's one after another, and you have to find balance and not really take on everything, I feel, but do what feels right as far as networking as well. Our theme for the ABA Young Lawyers Division Professional Development Team this year is actionable, meaning that we want to provide our members with actionable takeaways that they can implement today, right after this program, to improve their own practice and professional development. Based on our theme this bar year, can you provide one actionable step that our audience members can do to develop their own personal legal brands? Maggie, let's start with you.
Sure. So just to follow up on what I said in response to your last question, something actionable could be within the next week, try to have 3 conversations with somebody that you do not know, that you just meet out and about, and try to use some of those conversation starters that I just mentioned.
Frank, what about you?
You know, I have 2 in mind. One, I try to make a point of meeting people for coffee. I'm here in Miami, and if you're a networker, somebody, it's a fairly inexpensive way to meet somebody face to face. And you can meet somebody at the local Starbucks or local coffee shop, and for $8 or $9, and for about 25 minutes of your time, especially if you do it early in the morning, it's not a big interruption for either you or the person you're meeting with. You know, you can do that, you know, once a week, twice a week. If you did that twice a week, and you did it for the year, it wouldn't break the bank, and you would have met about 100 or so people, and you would really have expanded your network. A lot of folks don't appreciate how many people they actually know and how many people they can get to know, vis-a-vis either people you went to high school or college or law school with, people you've tried cases with or against, folks that you know through various bar associations or events. Probably everybody on this Zoom call probably knows at least 100 people that they could probably reach out to. And just sitting down and inviting somebody for coffee and spending a half hour, 20 minutes with them, it's a great way to broaden and deepen your network. And then for my second tip for LinkedIn, if you don't already have a LinkedIn profile, you know, do get one and make the effort of connecting with folks. And then those are sort of relationships, by the way, that you can typically take offline. A lot of the folks I meet with for coffee are folks I initially met through LinkedIn, you know, folks who follow me or I follow them or vice versa. And we get to know each other and say, oh yeah, you know, we've been following each other, let's grab coffee. And that's a good way of turning an online relationship into a personal one.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. I'd like to take our remaining time. I know we are kind of, you know, going through these topics, but I want to just take the remaining time and open the floor to our audience for Q&A. So please submit any questions you may have. And then I just have a few more. So as for personal legal branding, how much emphasis should attorneys be placing on the reputation of their law schools? In addition, just to add, what about the reputations of their law firms or companies? Maggie?
I think it depends on what law school you went to. Like, it depends on what law school you went to. It depends on where you graduated in your class and what activities you were involved in. So for me, I graduated from Loyola University in Chicago. My GPA was okay. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't amazing. You know, I wasn't top 10. My activities were not that impressive. So on my resume, 10 years out, I have that I went to Loyola. I have what year I graduated, and that's the extent of it, because what I'm using more so to sell myself and my brand is the experience that I've gleaned in these 10 years practicing in multiple different areas of law, and the network that I have by being involved in the bar associations. So I think really your firm, I think also the same thing. It really does. It depends on where you practice at. If you're at a huge name firm or a firm that is, you know, highly respected for a particular area of law within the field that you're working in, highlight that more. If it's not, then highlight other things that are your strengths. I think just play up your strengths, whatever they may be.
Yeah, I agree. I think the further you are or further out you are in your practice, the less relevant it is where you went to law school, what grades you got, and having been practicing for 25 years. I mean, I don't think anybody has ever asked me that in 20 plus years now. And so, but if you're just starting out, obviously, where you went to school and the grades you got, you'll get those sorts of questions. But you don't really have to focus on those. You can basically focus on whatever area of the practice you're doing, or if you're involved in a nonprofit or you're involved in the bar association. There's ways of highlighting your credentials so that you emphasize what you want to emphasize. If you're involved in a specific nonprofit, that can be sort of your lead. If you're involved with, your moot court, or if you're involved, or we're involved in moot court, or you're helping with the moot court now as a young lawyer, just try to find something that differentiates yourself from the rest of the pack and use that as sort of your moniker.
Yeah, great. Thank you. How often have you obtained an opportunity in your career or extracurricular bar association or something like that solely because of your personal legal brand or reputation? Frank, let's start with you.
At first, not much. And as you continue being more involved online and you get more and more reputation, then you get more and more invitations. It's sort of compounded interest, where at first you're doing something, you're putting in the time, putting in the work, and you don't see the immediate results. And the question is, like, should I continue doing this? And if you do, eventually you're going to start seeing people calling you or noticing you or asking you to speak or to write. And then it almost kind of takes off. It almost becomes like a bell curve, where originally, and sometimes it almost happens overnight, is you kind of reach a tipping point, and suddenly you are getting a lot of calls and a lot of emails, and sometimes you're being asked to do a lot of different things where maybe just a year, 2 years earlier, you were hardly being asked at all. And so it's consistency over time, and it's over a long period of time. This is a marathon, not a sprint, but eventually if you keep at it, whatever it is you're doing, whether it's on social media or in person or whatever approach you have to marketing yourself and branding yourself, eventually it's going to pay off. But you have to stick with it, and you have to stick with it for a long period of time.
What about you, Maggie?
So the question was basically, have I gotten any opportunities that directly came through me building my personal brand? Yes, for sure. I definitely have, as Frank was saying, been reached out to speak. Kernisha, who I met through the Bar Association, and reached out to interview for jobs because of my building of my personal brand. And I would just highlight for people, like, we're in a reputation business, we're in a sales business. What Frank has said is completely true. I've experienced the same thing, that at first you're trying so hard, I want to get in, I want to get my foot in the door. Why doesn't anybody want me to speak or be involved? And then all of a sudden it's like, you might have to start saying no because too much is coming in. And so when you're trying to start off with building your brand and getting yourself more of a platform, I would make the suggestion to you that do whatever you can to make yourself available, if at all possible. Like the way I first got involved with somebody contacted me the day before and was like, we have somebody that dropped out, do you want to speak? And you could take that and be offended, like, oh, how dare you reach out to me day of, I'm worth more than that, I'm too busy, blah, blah, blah. Or you can take that as, okay, let me move some things around so I can make this work. And then next time, the following year, I got invited as a formal panelist, not just as a last minute invite. So yeah, for sure, there are opportunities that will come to you if you put yourself out there. You just have to be, willing to work hard for it.
Yeah, Maggie makes a good point where sometimes when you initially first start breaking out, you're not going to get like the top opportunities. You're probably going to get something where you are filling in, or instead of speaking, you're moderating, or instead of writing the main article, you're writing like a smaller, shorter piece. And you take those opportunities, you leverage them, and that usually leads to bigger and better things.
Yeah, great. Okay, and this is my last question. It looks like we don't really have any questions from our audience, our attendees, but how would you define your own brand if you had to in 3 to 5 words? Maggie, let's start with you.
Sure. So in 3 to 5 words, I would say, and I've already used up my 3 to 5. I would say oral advocacy, or let's rephrase that, public speaking, whether that be oral advocacy, whether that be here, what we're doing now. I'm good with that. Hardworking. If I say I'm going to get something done, then I get it done. And positive. Those are the 3 kind of attributes that I would say define me.
Great. Frank?
I go by the phrase Miami Mentor. I have my own website, miamimentor.com, and it's kind of stuck. And so that's actually part of my byline for my LinkedIn description. And so I kind of come across somebody who likes to mentor folks. And I've kind of used that as a broad way of saying that I know how to do certain things. I know how to speak or write or be an advocate or try cases, and I teach others how to do it. And if I can teach others how to do it, then I must be pretty good at it myself. And so behind the concept of being Miami Mentor, I feel like I come across somebody who is a good litigator. And so that's sort of a short way of passing that message along to others.
Great. Well, thank you. I'd like to thank the attendees for tuning in and engaging and being here today. And last but not least, thank you, Maggie and Frank, for being with us today. You two are outstanding. Your perspectives are insightful and informative. I hope they have given our attendees actionable steps to take for their own personal branding development strategies. I look forward to seeing all the great things you both are going to do as you continue in your careers, and happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays.